I've really been a hunter. I've really been a hunter and a prospector since I started out in sales. At Xerox, when I first started out of college in 2015, I did close business, and I closed business at Soft Choice, my large value-added reseller. This was 4 years ago. So I've been in tech for 4 years. And I think that at the beginning of, my journey into technology, definitely there's a lot that I had to learn. I really believe that in order to sell, in order to be really, really great in sales, you do have to be a challenger sales rep. But I think that there's a piece that the challenger sales methodology is missing, and that's empathy, focus and empathy. And how you're empathetic with your clients or your customers is you really know and understand their shoes. You know what sort of world that they live in. So I think the only true way to develop that at GitLab is to really build your technical acumen. It's something that I've done. It's actually why I took the job at Soft Choice 4 years ago. It's what led into my journey at Chef Software, which is it's another DevOps company. This was, 3 years ago, I took that job and I worked there for 2 years. And then I've basically been here for, round numbers a year. But I mean, long story short, the entire journey that I've been on over the past 4 years, I've been focused on developing my technical acumen at sort of a consistent frequency.
So how long after you started as an SDR did the game start slowing down and you got into a growth and you were pretty you were very comfortable in your role? Did that take 1 year or 2 years or how long did that take?
You start to notice, if you make a cold call, this was back, I would almost say 6 months, I think you could see really positive results. This isn't something that happens in a month. This is something that's cumulative. It's additive. So, and all of a sudden you'll just start to see synergies, with the terminology, with some of the conversations you've been in, and you'll be in a new conversation. You'll be like, oh, I know what this means, right? I know how to position this. I know, X, Y, Z. So you'll start to see results in 6. I don't know. I think it could be fast tracked with what you're doing here, Chris, and building out this foundation for people to start on. So I think it'd be quick. It could be quicker, but for me, it was 6 months. I really started to see strong results.
That's awesome. I know that. So I also want to talk about, just how to level up. I think that a lot of people here, we're all hard workers. People are putting in the time. But maybe it's not super intuitive about how I get better as an SDR. I'm curious as to some of the things that you tried and a little bit of rites of passage that you undertook. So was mentoring a part of it? One of the things that I know that you do is learning about the technical side of things. I think one of the big challenges that we have is that almost all of our technical literature is written for engineers. Mm-hmm. And then so if I look up something GitLab deploying to Kubernetes, then it's really hard for me to understand if I'm a new salesperson, what this is about and why someone would care about it. So I know that's a multi-part question, but just talk to me a little bit about your rites of passage and how you tackle leveling up technically.
Well, I think it's different from what I did in the past. I mean, what I did in the past is basically go on Chorus and just transcribe conversation and figure out, hey, do I not understand what they're talking about here? And then could I go to Google? Could I read Wikipedia? Could I go on YouTube and maybe listen to some YouTube videos about that and pull from a bunch of different sources and try to understand further? Don't do that. That is probably the most painful path you could do to learn something. I think if you were to start with what's being developed here on this course and just start from there, rather than kind of jumping into the fire, and you're still going to go to Google, you're still going to try to really dig into that term or that phrase, or maybe the sentence block that you don't understand. But I would say focus on And you actually hear Elon Musk talk about this, focus on first principles. So like, I think with this, Chris, I've been working with you throughout the past week on like building out this Q2 training you're putting together. I think it does focus on first principles, which is awesome. So just understand your basics. It's really easy. And I say that because it's really easy in this field to get way too far ahead of yourself. Like, don't start trying to understand truly what like machine learning operations is and AI ML models. Like, if you find yourself there, you're in too deep water. Come back, understand like, hey, what truly is a data center? What truly is cloud computing? What is like software development, right? Figure out what those shoes are and then try to, just picture those. I remember one of the biggest things that when I was just starting technically was virtualization. Like, can I really understand what virtualization is? So that's an example.
That's awesome. So in terms of learning some of these technologies, is it YouTube videos or certificates or like, like where could I get started if I'm like new as an SDR?
Yeah, I think YouTube is a fantastic route. And then if you ever do want to dive into something specific, Udemy is a fantastic website. In fact, for GitLab specifically, once you kind of build your technical acumen, and I think that if you do spend 3 to 6 months, studying like, I'd say 10 hours a week is probably a really, really strong number, anywhere between 5 to 10. Go to Udemy. They have a fantastic GitLab course.
Yeah.
Oh, and Linux Academy as well. I have to put a plug for them. They're fantastic. If you do truly want to dive in and say, hey, how do I understand like GitLab architecture? Like, what's a GitLab runner? What is it really doing? What's Docker? Linux Academy. And to speak in some philosophy about this, there are so many courses now, and more in the future as well. I think there's going to be just a continued sort of burst of these sort of hand-holding 101 type exercises where you have someone highly technical trainer that's on YouTube, they're on a video platform, and they're holding your hand, walking you through. You can kind of think of it like training wheels as well. So anyways, I love those. Those have taught me more than, without those, I probably wouldn't be able to dig the information out of a textbook. So.
Yeah. I really like what you said about continue learning. I think that a lot of times when people see like a good quarterback or good salesperson, they just think like, oh, he's super talented or he's, he is born with everything like this. But then you realize that you've spent like, your weekends learning all this technology stuff over a period of years, which allows you to have better conversations with your customers. So I really commend you for that. That's something that I did too when I was an engineer. Another thing I'd like to just like chime in and say that like when I was in sales, I was around these guys that made $200,000-$300,000 a year. A large chunk of them spent their weekends getting like technical certificates. And at that high of a level, that's just a rite of passage that some people need to take. I don't think that everyone needs to go that route, but I do think that's a good route to take. Cool. Well, that's really awesome. Thanks for talking to me about, talk to me a little bit more about the challenger sale. So that's something that I really want to encourage us to do more. I think that the challenge with using the challenger sale approach is that like, if we're not technical enough, then we can sometimes get ourselves into trouble, right?
Yeah.
So when did you feel like you were confident enough? Do you think that technical training that you did allowed you to feel confidently so that you could take a challenger approach to these sales conversations?
Of course. It was all that, because I think that maybe we can say that salespeople are born with business acumen. I'm just kidding. You develop that, and business acumen is something that's ongoing. Like every time I pick up the phone in the morning, it's probably the worst call of the day. My first call is the worst call every time, without fail. So business acumen is something that you develop over time. It's trial by fire, right? But then you get to a point where you're at a company like GitLab, and we're essentially selling the gigafactory, going back to a Musk reference. Tesla, they have what manufactures the Tesla is a gigafactory. It's this huge automated factory. And so we're selling the equivalent at GitLab of the gigafactory to software development teams. It's an end-to-end solution from planning to deployment, security, and monitoring, right? And everything in between. So that's extraordinarily technical. If you don't have sort of a background in technical knowledge about what GitLab is, what it's doing, when beyond the problems that it solves, what are some of the technical aspects to those problems? What are some of like, to give you a hard example, let's say you're on a conversation and you're talking to, the head of DevOps for an organization, and they say, "Hey, I want a push button deploy whenever any developer commits to master, that goes through a bunch of tests and gets deployed right to production." Well, what they just mentioned was they want continuous deployment, and then further, they go to say, but by the way, GitLab. But by the way, most of my developer groups are looking at Atlassian. Right? You laugh, Chris, because you know that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So right there on that call or IQM or whatnot, even over a conversation, if you cold call and you catch them at a good time, and they say that, can you educate them, rephrase, hey, not bash Atlassian, but really challenge them in an educational but yet friendly way, that what they just described is exactly what GitLab does, but Atlassian is totally on another page for XYZ reasons. You're not going to be able to say those XYZ reasons if you can't catch what he said, and you can't articulate that value through sort of a technical message.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that background. I absolutely agree. I think that there's different types of sellers, but I also identify as an empathetic seller. And I think that the way for me to engage clients successfully is by understanding their business problems, which requires technical understanding. So that's cool that we both share that. Thanks for walking with me through your journey. I love hearing your story, and you heard it from the man himself. He didn't arrive at 146% by any accident. He did it because he spent his weekends on Udemy and Linux Academy and things like that. I want to turn the conversation now to, okay, so you've been in this seat for a while and you're a high performer. What sort of best practices do you use so that you achieve quarter after quarter? Can you just walk me through some tips and tricks that we can use?
Yeah, I'd love to touch on those. And there's one thing that I end about like technical training, because it's like, how deep do you go? I think that as an SDR, if you're to get to the place where you can look at someone's title, right? And the IT value chain is basically just another term for like the software lifecycle. And in the IT value chain, if you were to know off the cuff, what's the difference between a software developer, an SRE, someone who's truly in infrastructure operations, someone who's in security, someone who's in project management, if you're able to understand the differences in those on a LinkedIn profile, and then you're able to call that person, you're able to write them a customized message, that is really where you want to be, right? Just to let you know, if you get yourself, I think, technically to that point, you're solid. Because it's like, when do you stop? But anyways, as to like some of my best practices that I've used at GitLab, I think visualization is key. How can I make work visible? So I try to keep the best that I can, maybe on a bi-monthly sort of cadence, updating my Kanban board and saying, hey, this is just the work. This is the campaigns that I have in Snapshot. Just so if I get kind of caught up in the week, I can always look back at that board and say, hey, like, what am I missing? What did I not do this week? I think it really helps hold me accountable. The next thing, and I think this is even bigger, and I've talked to my own team on the Enterprise West named division about this. This is what I always say is to like, what's really helped me be successful is, how do you really stay in touch with someone? Like, they say in February, hey, I want to have a conversation with you. Like, they listen to you, or they read what you have to say. They know who GitLab is, and they say, yes, I want to have that conversation. And there's someone important. They're like a software manager or director or whatnot. The only way you stay in my opinion, the only way that I ever stay in touch with a person like that is if I have a follow-up sheet. So I'm really making that highly visible. That's the one thing in my business that I think I make visible above anything else, is my follow-up sheet, right? Put their name down, because chances are those individuals will get lost in the ether, and the meeting, they won't hit you back. The meeting will get rescheduled and pushed out and whatnot. So you got to stay in front of these people. Put their name on an Excel list with their account name. Put it like a next step or follow-up item, and then put the summary of notes that you had with that interaction or that conversation. And I think that if you follow up with that person once a week, I would say once a week is a good frequency. My second thing is I've heard, like, since I've been here at GitLab, there's sort of a debate and discussion around urgency and around, am I being too aggressive in follow-up? Look, I think that if you're in a key account, or just in an account that has large potential for growth, and you do have someone from a high like level, high title position in a company, say I want to talk to you, and they go dark, that person's busy. They're serious. GitLab is an extremely powerful DevOps product. They do want to talk with you. So don't feel bad if you hit them once a week from a call, a LinkedIn message, and an email. Like, don't feel bad about that. It's 12 times a month. Maybe not that much. You can scale it back, yeah. So those two things, making work visible in terms of the campaign perspective and the follow-up sheet, I think astronomical in the success here.
Thanks. Is your follow-up sheet, I'm just trying to dive a little bit more into logistics, but is it a Google document, or like
it is a Google document? And I see here. Yeah, you can set, like, there's different ways to do it. There's different ways to spin it. Like SFD reminder tasks, you could do that as well. I know in Outreach, you can set like hot tasks or whatnot. Just a follow-up sheet, for whatever reason, for me has worked. So.
Do you collaborate with the rest of your extended sales team through the sheet?
From time to time, yes. So sales are going to want to see, hey, who have we connected with in an account? Like, what's been those conversations? I have them on speed dial, so I could just loop my, share the Google sheet with them, and they can see it.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, that's all the questions that I have for you, James. I'd like to pass the mic over to anyone if there's any additional questions for him while we have him on the line. All right. Well, if there's no additional questions, we'll give you your time back.
James, I have one ask.
Yes. Yeah, Ramona.
Do you have any of your notes that you were using when you first started trying to take in, okay, here's how much technical information I want to get. Here's the things that I really need to get solid, that you could share? And it's totally okay if not, because I know Chris is putting together a lot of things. I just know that sometimes it's good just to see how a specific SDR took that in.
Yeah, Mona, no, I haven't. I don't have that. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. I don't want you to recreate anything. You're on PTO. So no worries. Just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, Ramona.
And thank you so much for sharing. This is awesome. And well done on your quarter. So amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I can chime in there. So I think that one of the big challenges that a lot of people face is, hey, I want to get technical so I can have better sales conversations, right? But how do I do this in an effective and targeted manner? I only have so many hours in a week. So that's basically the purpose of what Tanuki Academy is. As you can see over here, here's our goals for our organization, but literally what James was talking about earlier is personas, right? We have a class for that. If there's things that you want to take in a specific area, we probably have a class for that as well. So if you keep on hearing like, hey, I hear Kubernetes a lot, I don't understand what this is, I don't understand how to ask good questions, then we're building out content all the time. And our registration is going to open up soon. And once again, our goal is to help you so that this is not an issue and that you can get this in a really effective and quick manner.
Love it.
So exciting.
That's also exciting. And Brandon, I'm definitely going to be hunting down that call that you referenced in the chat. I'm always looking to hear a good call. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a great one.
Yeah. James, thank you so much. I did not want him to do this on PTO. But he was so passionate and excited to share with you all and thrilled at the opportunity. So he's, graciously taken time out of his vacation. So just thank you, James. The continuous learning and iteration, I feel like, are two of his strongest suits of watching him as like a coach. And one of the big things too is not getting too up in your head about, again, having to have all the technical acumen right now, no matter what part of your journey you're in. I think the one area to focus on that I've seen the best success from SDRs is really getting good at asking those questions, right? Those leading questions, those open-ended questions. If you listen to James's calls, they're phenomenal. I put it in the chat, but he doesn't just take answers at face value. And that's where the challenger really comes in. And he guides the conversation in a way that ultimately ends up with his value prop. So I can share a couple really good examples that we've gone over together. And I'll also share that follow-up sheet that some other reps use on my team. But thanks, James.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, James. Thanks, Chris.
Cool. All right, see you all on the next SDR Conversations.